Today we're going to talk a little bit about the blues, especially how it relates to jazz. Now, I listened to blues as a teenager, young teenager, before I ever listened to jazz, and so it always stayed with me. And the important thing, I think, when you're playing a jazz blues, which is going to have the substitution of sophisticated chords, is to keep the spirit of the original blues alive when you're playing that. I mean, blues is real folk music. It's music of the earth. It's not an intellectually based music. Although over the years, of course, there's so many sophisticated versions of the blues. But that's using it as the root of sophisticated playing and sophisticated improvisation like we have in jazz. So, like I said, the important thing is to keep the roots of the music while you're playing a jazz version of the blues. So generally we find that even as guitar players we find ourselves playing in keys like B flat and E flat because those are like at-home keys for horn players. Whereas in traditional blues that are just not necessarily in jazz context, you find keys that are more comfortable to guitar players like E and A, because you've got open strings you can use. But, you know, Thelonious Monk wrote a number of heads that are over a blues progression, you know. The most famous being Blue Monk. Balu Bolivar, Balu Czar, etc. They're all in B flat. So we're going to use that as our basis today. And you can see some of my fingering for guitar players will look a little odd because I don't need to, because I'm playing with the fingers of my right hand in classical guitar style. I don't need to silence certain strings. If I was playing these 4 notes, which is B flat, and then on the D string, I've got an A flat, D, the third on the third string, and the 5th, F on the 2nd string. If I was playing with a pick, I'd have to play it like this, so that the 5th string is muffled. Or you can just double the 5th or whatever there. But none of that is necessary for playing with my fingers because all I need to do is pluck the necessary strings and nothing else gets sounded. So that's just the technical basis of what I'm doing today. But if we were going to play through a blues progression, played some chords there. I implied some chords by the lines I was playing there, But even though there were a lot of arpeggios and different kinds of really kind of jazz lines, you know, the basis of what I was doing was still like kind of folk blues, and it gives everything so much flavor. The interesting thing about folk blues is it's, you know, they talk about the blues scale and the bebop scale. Those aren't really scales. They're ways of getting to the root, the third, the fifth, sometimes the seventh, and it can get very close to being chromatic, meaning that you're using all of the notes. So even just going from something like this, like a real, there I used 9 or 10 notes of the chromatic scale. But, and this bled into bebop, and it's really at the heart of bebop when you're enclosing notes like, with the note above it and the note below it, whether it's chromatically above it or kind of diatonically above it. And so we come to the one chord. There's 11 notes from this scale. The only thing I didn't play there, no, actually that was 10 notes. I didn't play the natural 9, and I didn't play the major 7th. But all those things can be played in passing and sometimes right on the beat. You know, when you have what they call the flat 5, technically most of the time it's acting as a sharp 11, but in the case of B flat it's the E note. And you're playing the 5th, the sharp 5th or flat 6th, the 6th or 13th. You're using all the notes. It's a matter of how you put them together and how you trace a path to the resolving tone. And then come to the 4 chord, in this case an E flat 7, which you can, you know, sharp 11, 13, and sometimes I would play something over that that's emphasizing the 13, the sharp 11, the natural 9 on that chord. Now, of course, you can keep playing a blues scale. It will fit over the whole thing, but it will have much less flavor. Come back to the 1 chord. At minimum, the blues, before you get to the turnaround, will add in an extra 2/5. So the 2/5/1 in B flat, of course, is C minor 7, F7 to B flat, and in the case of blues, it's a B flat 7 most of the time. Unless you get to the real kind of Charlie Parker blues, and it's often a major 7 or something like that. But before we come to the 2/5 at the end of the form, we fill up a measure that would normally be filled with the 1 chord, the 2/5 of the 2/5. So the 2/5 of is going to be simply the same thing, a half step up. D minor 7, G7, C minor 7, for a full measure, D7, F7. And so it really adds a lot of flavor to it if you play. Over those chords, whatever you find appropriate to bring out the sounds or the upper voices of those chords. And then you come to over the 2-5 of the 2-5, I'm talking about the minor 7. G7. Now, C minor 7, the 2-5 of the one chord in the B flat blues. Back to the 1. So those are just a few thoughts on retaining the spirit of the blues when you're playing jazz and jazz blues. And we will talk again soon. Thanks.